Ozzy and Randy were close friends and creative partners, building a sound that was bold, wild, and emotionally powerful. But just as things were looking up, tragedy struck in the most brutal way, and it shattered Ozzy completely inside. In 1982, while touring in Florida, the band stopped at a rest point, and their bus driver took Randy on a short flight. The plane was unauthorized, the pilot had no valid license, and began buzzing the tour bus just to show off recklessly. On the third pass, the plane clipped the bus and crashed in a fiery explosion, killing Randy and 2 others instantly. Ozzy heard the impact, ran outside, and watched in horror as flames consumed the wreckage that ended his friend's life. He later said a part of him was still standing in that field, unable to move from the image of Randy's burning remains. Randy was just 25 years old, and Ozzy's creative spark vanished, with him leaving only grief, confusion, and heartbreak. Ozzy admitted it took years to record again because he was emotionally destroyed and barely functioning as a musician. He stayed on antidepressants for decades and called Randy his light, his partner, and the one person who gave him hope. But even that tragedy wasn't enough to stop the inner war, because addiction was always lurking and ready to destroy more. Ozzy's drug list was endless: heroin, cocaine pills, cough syrup, glue, marijuana, and of course gallons of alcohol daily. He later found out he had rare genes that made his body more tolerant to drugs, which may explain how he even survived. Strangely, he once said caffeine affected him more than heroin, and yet he still couldn't stop pushing his limits. He's been in recovery since 2006, but admits those years are filled with regret, shame, blackouts, and dangerous, reckless choices. Still, even as he fought to heal his past, there were more moments that reminded him how fragile life really is. In 1986, during a show in Long Beach, California, a fan named John Loftus collapsed and died from an apparent overdose. He fell backward, broke his neck, and police later confirmed it was an accident, but the tragedy changed the night forever. 3 others were seriously injured that evening, and several arrests were made during the chaos of the wild metal concert. Ozzy, who was called the Prince of Darkness, felt the weight of that night. Behind the scenes, Ozzy's personal life was falling apart, and the chaos didn't stop with music, drugs, or fame alone. He married his first wife, Thelma Riley, in 1971, but quickly admitted he was a terrible husband full of shame and guilt. He treated their marriage like it didn't exist, often cheating, using drugs, and disappearing for days without warning or care. He remembered once calling Thelma from California, then sleeping with 3 women immediately after hanging up the phone. He later said she didn't deserve that kind of pain, and he regrets everything he did to destroy what could have been stable. But things didn't get better with his second marriage to Sharon Osbourne, which brought its own nightmare to face. In 1989, during a drug-fueled blackout, Ozzy tried to kill Sharon, telling her she had to die before strangling her violently. Luckily, someone else was there to stop it, and police arrived in time to arrest Ozzy, who had no memory of what happened. He woke up in a jail cell, confused, covered in filth, with an officer telling him he had tried to murder his own wife. Sharon later said if she had a gun, she would have shot him that night, and even after rehab, the wounds never fully healed. Even after the attack, they stayed together, but it came with broken trust pain and more cheating that followed for years. Sharon revealed in 2022 she knew of at least 6 women Ozzy had affairs with, including staff and random fans on tour. She once gave Ozzy sleeping pills just to get him to confess, and found out he had lied about ending one of the affairs. The betrayal devastated her, but they kept fighting through it, somehow staying married through storms most couples wouldn't survive. By 2018, Sharon admitted on The Talk that intimacy was strained. Ozzy still craved closeness, but she preferred peace and distance. And while they remained together, they never forgot how close they came to losing everything they had built together. Then in 2003, Ozzy nearly died in a quad bike accident on his estate, flipping the vehicle and crushing his neck and ribs. He broke his collarbone, cracked his vertebrae, and had 8 broken ribs pressing into vital blood vessels inside his chest. He said he died twice, and his bodyguard Sam Ruston revived him more than once before emergency crews arrived to save him. Ozzy spent 8 days in a coma and needed metal rods in his body to hold himself together during recovery. While he healed from near death, his wife Sharon was battling colon cancer, and he thought he might lose her too. She also suffered from bulimia and deep body image struggles, and the emotional toll on Ozzy was more than he could handle. Their daughter Kelly was addicted to drugs by 13, and Sharon once committed her to a mental hospital to scare her straight. Their son Jack developed a painkiller addiction at 17 and also needed treatment to get his life back on track. Though both eventually recovered, the family's battles with addiction, illness, and emotional trauma shook their foundation deeply. And not all their children wanted to be part of the spotlight, especially their daughter Amy, who rejected the fame entirely. Amy moved out at 19, refusing to be filmed on the Osbournes, and stayed away from the cameras for most of her life. She later said the family fought over it, and she struggled with depression, choosing privacy and healing over public fame. She eventually returned to acting and music, but kept her distance from Jack and Kelly while staying civil with Ozzy and Sharon. Meanwhile, Ozzy's other children from his first marriage, Louis and Jessica, stayed away from the cameras completely too. Louis tried music but never matched Ozzy's fame, and in 2013 went bankrupt after a housing crash ruined their finances. All these family fractures added to the chaos behind Ozzy's public persona of wildness, fame, and rock and roll mayhem. In 2020, Ozzy finally revealed he was diagnosed with a form of Parkinson's disease after months of cancelling shows quietly. Fans feared he was near death, but he called the diagnosis a weight lifted and said he would not give up fighting. Sharon called it a disease with good days and bad, and Ozzy admitted 2019 had been the worst year of his life so far. He had suffered a brutal fall at home, and the metal pins from his 2003 accident were knocked loose in his spine. He said the pain was unbearable, a 55 out of 10, and described months of waking up unable to move at all. After multiple spinal surgeries and a long nightmare recovery, he made the hardest decision of his career in early 2023.